talking, I'm like, look, you need to watch the debate. And like, you just, like, because I was very convinced that if someone just watched that debate, that they're not going to come out agreeing with G1 and Julian. But the some people were, and I don't really care too much, but I was surprised at how many ad hominems there were against me. Like there were people saying that, oh, like you're just so biased. Like G1 was like telling me I'm so biased against Trinitarians. And look, there might be a bias there, right? But like, in light of what you watched, and then the way that people were treating me in defending Jake, right? It just does not match. It wasn't like I was super biased.
Yeah,
It's just
it doesn't match at all. Because I never I never talk about people's performance. I'm not even a good debater like that. I don't talk about the only reason why I'm talking is because of how everyone was reacting to what you were saying, and I was low-key like believing, okay, maybe Danny is being biased. Let me go watch this, and then I watch it, and like I even come to stronger conclusions than you. And I don't have anything against Nick. I actually like Nick. I like what he's doing. I have things against Jake.
Dude, I was so bothered by the debate that I called Nick right after and I explained to him everything, right? And he didn't push back. And I even said, okay, I asked, and I told you this, right? I said, Nick, if given the definition of consistency, logical formality, or formal consistency in the debate you provided, if you formalize these two statements, is it logically consistent in that sense? And it was, I'm a bachelor and I am married, right? And he said, yes, that's illogical. He said, it is inconsistent. And
Right.
it just really,
Because like it just shows you like what people. I don't understand it with people as well though, because it's like if I feel like if I did what Nick did, people would be like, what the fuck is Veritas doing?
You don't go
Like it depends on it also depends on how people perceive you as well. I think it's like they've already like seen Nick as a certain way, so when he did that, it's like whatever. But then like, which is fine. But I don't see how they would criticize you for coming to your own like objective conclusions outside of all that. That was the reason why I spoke. That was the reason why.
I mean, I think that, yeah, they really thought though that by Jake saying that was a consistent string of formula, this string of symbols, right? And then that was the concession, and it would have been had he done two things. I think it would have been a concession if he admitted that was an adequate model of Trinitarian commitments. Now, I would agree. I mean, I haven't seen the debate. You saw the debate more recently, but he didn't. One thing I would criticize Jake on, but this might be more of the fact that there wasn't a lot of time and Jake focused maybe on stuff that I think I would have not focused on. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But he didn't try to say, hey, look, the church fathers, there's nothing in the church fathers that had to do anything with it, like this kind of identity, right? So why would I take that to be an adequate model? I wish there was something like that. There wasn't, right? So that's a criticism. But the main thing that really convinced me that he did not concede is the two, he said, that is consistent with respect to that formal system, and then made the comparison to J.C. Beale, right? That, I mean, to me, that's just very, very straightforward. That how he's not contradicting himself when he's saying on one hand it's inconsistent with respect to that system, but inconsistent period because he doesn't accept that system. He accepts a different formal system. And then I talked to G1. Did you see my conversation with G1 yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, yesterday, no.
Yeah, so I talked to G1 about it, and G1 has told me that, well, when you say something's logically inconsistent, right, that is with respect to any formal system. And I'm like, no. Whether something's consistent or inconsistent is going to be with respect to a specific system, because you could have a model that's consistent in one system but inconsistent in another. And so I think G1 and I cleared that up, but so I think I made a little bit of progress with G1 yesterday, but I'm not so sure.
I think I see where June's coming from because in the SCP they would say something under like model theoretic validity that it would be consistent. Like you couldn't derive like a contradiction in any system. Like you couldn't derive some. It would just be like the model theoretic validity would just be like there's no counter example to this argument. So I think like when G1's saying like us to be like in all formal systems, it's just saying like there is no formal system that could give a counter example to the argument. Because in order for you to say a model is valid, model theoretic validity would just be the absence of a counter example. But I think like reason why I'm confused is because they're saying that like okay cool, they're saying Jake conceded, but then okay the part where they want to say that Jake conceded was like middle near to the end of the debate, right before the questions part, where he said, is this logically consistent? And Jake said no, even though he said it is earlier on, right? Where did Danny go?
I think he's gonna be right back. Hold up. Let me see.
Probably like that.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, he's back.
Okay, so like I was
Sorry,
saying like
I don't know where you're talking. Just
okay,
one
wait, where
second.
did he?
My headphones out. I had a student come in.
Okay.
All right, sorry.
But I was saying like from the middle to the end, Jake said to Nick, he said, Nick asked him, is my model logically consistent? And Jake said no. And that's the part where they want to say that Jake like conceded because they're saying that he said yes earlier. And I'm saying, bro, first off, right? It's like I've noticed this. People don't watch arguments, they watch hype moments, and then they just like get the conclusions from there. Because literally in the first 15 minutes of the discussion, Jake stressed what he meant by logical consistency. Like he gave so many examples. Like you can see he was like sweating on camera. This guy, he gave so many examples that when he says that something is logically consistent, you don't even before he started giving his examples. Do you remember his opening?
I can only be I can only. The answer is no, but I know what he didn't say. So in his opening,
Yeah,
so.
his opening. From his opening, you can infer what type of logical consistency he's talking about because his opening has like 4 objections for different aspects of the Trinity, from the Church Fathers, whatever.
Mhm.
So when he says is something logically consistent, he's obviously not just talking about a formal system. If he's bringing up Church Fathers and whatnot, and the quote unquote uncreated birds, all that should already like tell you what he meant. But fine, let's just say you want to like bypass it, right? So he said, okay, cool. Is it logically consistent according to classical logic? That's fine. I don't think Nick did bad in the I think he performed in the debate, right? Maybe you don't want to address all his objections, but the issue I have is people's like reaction to the debate and like the information they're giving me and you, because I know very well when I watch the video, like it's very clear what Jake meant by logical consistency. And so when he said that is logically consistent, he's saying that the model is logically consistent given the definition that
Of identity.
given the definition that Nick has provided. But he's not saying it's logically consistent given the definition that he wants to use in the conversation, that he did use in the conversation for the first 15 minutes of the debate.
Yeah, and so the only criticisms that I would see from then on is of Jake that, of course, Nick didn't make is, okay, but here's some literature as to what the LPT is. It seems like you're doing like an LPT light, right, or something like that. And then the conversation would have progressed about what people are getting at when they're talking about LPT. But it didn't go in that direction. I have to send you some clips of like 2 or 3 minutes later so we have people talking to Nick about that debate, and someone was like saying, okay, well, I want to know what your opinion about this is because I think it's pretty terrible, but so I just kind of preempted your response, but that's fine. So someone went up on Nick's panel and said, okay, fine, like, this is a consistent model. I'm just trying to understand how you count, though. Like, why is it that you count one God? And Nick's response was this: we count one God because the persons are all identical under the sortal God. What do you think about that?
We count one God because the persons are all identical under the sword of God.
The one sortal God, yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
You want me to give you my view?
I guess if he's just saying the items and the sort of the persons would just be the same. I don't. But go ahead. What's your view?
Okay. But that's exactly what's being asked, right? The thing is that you can have two possible models. You can say that the three persons are each three gods, right? Each are distinct entities under the sortal God. Or you could say that the three persons are the same entity under the sortal God. The question is, why prefer one model over the other? Like, what's doing the work such that you're choosing the model that where they're identical, rather that there's one rather than three? In other words, it's asking how you count. And so if you you can't say, well, like, okay, how are you counting one principle? Oh, because there's only one principle, right? Well, but wait, but how are you getting there, right? And so, there's relative identity, and this is a sort of a separate point from the debate, right? But what you should anticipate for people that are listening to Nick and what Nick has been saying is that the counting method, right, or the way that you count one God rather than three gods, right, isn't captured by that syntax that Nick provided, right? There has to be a metaphysical kind of explanation for why you're counting one or three, or you could just take it on authority, right? I'm actually, that's fine, right? Like, that's just saying, well, look, I read it in the Bible, there's one God, so that there's one God, right? Like, that's fine, right? But but the whole thing is that if you're trying to alleviate the anxiety of anti-Trinitarians or non-believers, right? Like, hey, look, it looks like there's three gods. Saying that, well, the Bible says there's not three, right, is not going to relieve those anxieties. Usually, so then this is why, like, people like Branson or Aquinas, right, want to, like, give, okay, well, here's counting by division, right? Here's the nature, God is simple, and this is the way the person subsists, or something like that. I don't know, right? But I'm just wanted you to be aware of the illegitimate move of pointing to that syntax as an explanation for why you're getting one God rather than three.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the nature of the debate or the conversation. Because if I come to Noel and I say, like, okay, proposition X is illogical, and Noel gives me a model where proposition X is formally consistent.
Okay.
And like, we're under the same assumption of how we're using the word, like, logical in this instance, right? Then, like, I would say, like, he doesn't really need to give me an explanation as to why, like, why he would take this model over the other one. He's just giving a defense against the proposition.
Right.
Yeah. I think, like, Nick was good in giving his defense, but I think, like, it's just, my issue is just, like, what people are saying is just it's not, like, close to what happened.
Who else agrees with you? I feel like they're all disagree with me and my...
I just feel like it depends on how you cash out logicality. And if I did see Jake did cash it out, and in all his papers he does say it's not he's not only taking it in a logical, like, way, like how someone like Juju would take it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
So I would agree partially with you, Danny. But I would also see where G1's coming from, where he's like, well, he should have been more specific, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just wish that
fair.
I don't know if I should fault Jake for this or not. It's kind of tricky here, because the problem is that the second that different types of inconsistencies are distinguished, is the second that now the audience is like, they're in free fall, right? In terms of where they're going to land and who they're going to side with, right? Because it's a distinction that many can't keep up with. So it's actually sort of, I think, a pretty strong rhetorical move. Well, I don't want to say rhetorical move, but I guess for lack of a better word, rhetorical move to distinguish between different types of consistencies. Because when you make that distinction, right, you can leave room for the Trinity being consistent in one regard, or at least, you know, a string of symbols that are a candidate for capturing Trinitarian statements as consistent in one regard, and even though it might not be consistent for all we know in a different regard. And now the audience is hearing, oh, well, the Trinity is consistent, right? And in certain respects, right, like there was something that was said that would lend credence to that, right? So so really Jake has to do a lot more. It's like when Nick gives the juju approach. In other words, it's now an uphill battle for Jake to get everyone to understand what's going on, and it's very difficult, in my opinion, right? Because you're gonna have to say, as soon as you distinguish between these inconsistencies, you're gonna have to say that in some regard, the string of symbols that Nick is pointing to as capturing Trinitarian statements is consistent.
Yeah, because the thing is, I think, like, if Nick was gonna do that approach, he shouldn't have answered any metaphysical problems. The issue is he did answer metaphysical problems. So if he answers some and doesn't answer others, there's an issue there. That's why I think Nick
that
didn't do good there.
Okay, yeah, I think he had to do it because what is he going to do? Just just repeat over and over?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
so he should have just answered it from the jump. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just being like rhetoric. I can't lie.
Well, and yeah. Anyways, there's a lot, but what I wish is that, and again, I don't know whether I should blame Jake or not. I lean. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't even know where I lean. Like I just wish it was crystal clear to the average Joe what was going on, right? From how is the typical Trinitarian? What are they thinking? And I mean, the J.C. Beale thing was a pretty good way of, I think, characterizing it. But people, I don't think the average Joe is going to understand what's going on there. Like, they're going to get lost just when you say different formal systems. They're going to get lost there, right? So it's just like an uphill battle for Jake, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Honestly, I feel like, especially with like debating logical systems, 'cause I know like Peter Van and Wagen, for example, where he's going against like the system of relative identity. He's not like attacking necessarily like the metaphysical claims. So I think if they were to do like a redo debate, it's just focusing more on like what grounds your logical system, like you were saying before. I just feel like that's just way better. It's like once you get into the metaphysics, it's too far into the deep end to kind of pull up.
Yeah. I feel like it would have been a way better debate if they just had like understood, because I believe Jake did give his definition of like
he did
in his intro, right, or like in his opening.
Yeah, no, he did, but then it started going into like polymism and then other things, and it's just like it kind of muddies the water, I think. Whenever
he gave his definition so many times. Bro.
Yeah, it was crazy. I can't lie. Bro, it was just getting annoying as well.
You could see he was sweating, bro. Like,
yeah, he was sweating, bro.
He's like, how else can I break this down to this dude, bro?
Literally, it's like the guy wasn't even, bro. It's like Nick didn't even care about what this guy was saying.
He came in with a script and he stuck to it. I gotta rate it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
he stuck to that script,
and that's what I'm gonna start doing, because, bro, I've noticed, bro, people on TikTok don't actually care about substance, bro.
Of course not, bro.
You have to sound smart. But the thing is, like, for example, like what I got here, like Trinity is logical, right? And then when someone says illogical, and they use like the colloquial definition of logical, meaning like it's not rational, or you can't reason, it's not reasonable or something like that, right? But I'm not using it that way. I'm using it like it doesn't break the 3 laws of logic or something like that. Well,
okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's what's happening.
I think there is a kind of umbrella term logical that does cover almost every sense of almost every relevant sense of logical in philosophy, including the one that Juju has in mind. To me, when I'm saying in a kind of philosophical discussion, when I'm saying something's illogical, there's something inconsistent.
Just in general.
Now, just in general, there's something inconsistent. And so then you distinguish between different types of inconsistencies, right? So the one that Juju is focusing on is the syntactic slash formal inconsistency. But like you can have implicit inconsistencies where given some other necessary premise. So like here's a inconsistency that's not that can't be seen in in classical logic if you were to formalize it. So, and I've given this example like a billion times, so I apologize. But it's like if you formalize "I am a husband," right, and you formalize this different statement, at the same time, "I am not married." If you formalize that, there's no explicit or formal contradiction. So in order to derive that, you have to add a necessary premise, right? That husbands are married. Okay, but that's implicit, right? It's not in the statements the two statements that I've given. So when someone says that's illogical, what's going on is that there's a background assumption, right? A background premise, a necessary premise, right? Conceptual premise, whatever you want to say. This is the way the term is used, that husbands are not married. And so they impose that on the as a third statement, and then they say there's an inconsistency there. So that's so there's that kind of inconsistency. When people are irrational, they're being inconsistent with their commitments, right? So like even when it comes to practical rationality, so like oh man, I should have not tried to take a shortcut. You know how like there's a lot of traffic and you try to take a shortcut, and you knew that there was a very likely that taking the shortcut would actually take you more time, but you just hate the traffic so much, so you're irrational and you try to take the shortcut and you end up getting to work later than you should have. So that's a kind of irrationality, and what's going on is that there's inconsistency with respect to the kind of goals that you have. Like your goal is to get there on time, yet you've now knowingly done things to undermine that goal. So they're inconsistent with that goal. So there's a sense of illogical that's just about inconsistency. There's the so I think Branson sort of delineates between three. So the first one I think he calls explicit, and it seems to me very obvious that the Trinity is not explicitly contradictory. So an explicit contradiction would be something like this: I am a husband, and then the next statement is I am not. It's not the case that I'm a husband. Right. That's explicit. You don't need to. There's no sort of
I don't need to think
rule
about
that you. Right. There's no set of rules or anything like that like you need to see a P and not P there, because that is just a P and not P. And it's obvious to me that there's no explicit. Oops, did I cut out?
No, that's you're fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I only have like 3 minutes. I'm actually at work. I don't have much time. Quick question: if I formalize, the Trinity is three gods, by using the syntax, like you said, within first order logic, does that mean that the Trinity is three gods?
No.
Logically.
Sorry, if you were to formalize. Oh no, no, it wouldn't.
Sort of logic.
If you present a formalization, so is your question like if you present a formalization where it's something like there are three gods?
Yeah, for example, let's just say by using set theories or extensionality.
Yeah, if you formalize that, the Trinitarian is going to look at that and reject it, right?
Exactly.
That's consistent.
But the model within itself, would be consistency.
Well, that's why we
it wouldn't be an inconsistent
So
model.
what, bro?
Yeah, well, that's why we would disagree with Nick, because the content I do believe is important.
So what if it's consistent?
Nick.
That's what we've been talking about this whole time. That's what.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just got here. I don't know. Listen, I don't know.
Yo, blackout needs to get blacked out.
No.
Hey. To be fair, I just got here like 2 minutes ago, so I don't know what the whole argument.
Yeah, we're all kind of sort of on the
You just
same
got here 2
side
minutes
here
ago
now.
and you just started attacking the Trinity.
Alright.
This is the people. This is
force hatred garbage study, bro.
Julian thinks
Yeah,
Daniel.
can you not do that? No. Can you not do that?
No, this is who Julian thinks Daniel is.
So okay, just to be clear, so you agree that technically, Nick wouldn't really have an argument.
I already said I believe Nick was inconsistent throughout that debate because he did answer metaphysical problems, and then he said I'm not going to answer metaphysical.
I didn't hear none of that.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right then. All right, cool. All right then, later, yo.
I believe the content is very important, bro. The elements, bro.
Yeah, actually, the worst thing about this is something can actually, we can know something is false because it's illogical, but also something can be logically coherent and still be false. So that's why the debate was weird. It's like saying there's a unicorn in my room and that unicorn does not leave traces behind. You see, the conclusion follows from the premise, and the premise, if the premise is true, then the conclusion follows. But in reality, that's false. So it was a weird debate.
Yeah. I just feel like I just feel like he was inconsistent because he did answer metaphysics. If he had just kept it like, yo, man, I'm not answering nothing, then I would have respected it. But because he eventually did give in, I was just like, why didn't you just do that earlier? I feel like it was just a rhetoric game. I can't lie.
Hey, bro, random question. Y'all think God logic knows first order logic?
Nah, I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Nah, bro.
I'm not gonna lie, bro.
No, bro, what you mean?
But Danny, you do have to admit though, I just thought about it right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What do you mean? What?
Jake would be wrong if he says a Trinitarian cannot
Say that the Trinity is logically consistent, right?
Cannot say that. I mean, like, given the way that. Okay. You see, this is why I just fall back on the incoherent stuff. There's a sense in which that could be false, right? And I'd agree with you. But again, right, like, if there's a certain formal system at play, there's certain connectives that are controversial, like relative identity, the operators, it's like, so it's, I don't really see a big issue with relative identity. I think Jake, doesn't accept that identity is relativized. I don't. In fact, I think that might even be a superior understanding of identity, but not by a hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, can they say it's logically consistent? I mean, just in the example that I gave, it's not explicitly inconsistent. It's explicitly consistent, right? So there's no explicit contradiction in the seven Trinitarian statements. You have to utilize, I think, a principle of counting or something like that, right? And historically, I was about to ramble, but did I answer your question?
No, you can go ahead. And that's fine.
No, I was about to ramble. What did I? Is that where you were at? I mean, I don't know if I answered your question.
Basically, what I was asking was because the reason why I was asking what I was asking is because if Nick goes in with the intention to correct Jake, if Jake says Trinitarians cannot say, or like Trinity, either he says the Trinity is logically inconsistent, simpliciter, or that the Trinitarians cannot say that their view is logically consistent, whatever. And then Nick says, like during the debate, according to classical logic, this model of the Trinity that I gave you, is it logically consistent? Then, like,
I would understand the motivation behind what Nick did.
Yeah, so there are two different directions. Let's say the Jake direction is saying that those statements don't characterize Trinitarian, at least early Trinitarian commitments, right? That's one move you could make. In which case, they're making a false statement because the statements that they formalized, right, aren't Trinitarian commitments. Now, historically, I have not done that because I've done very little reading in the Church Fathers, right? I was fine to say that maybe they had relative identity in mind at some point. In which case, then, I've said stuff like, I think relative identity has solved the counting problem or progresses the conversation to metaphysical issues. I've said stuff like that. So, in which case, someone like me, if you were to ask me, can you formalize those statements in a way where it's, plausibly Trinitarian and, syntactically consistent? I would probably say yes, right? Because I don't have issues with relative identity as an operator. And I don't know, I mean, I'm starting to learn more, but there was a point in time where I didn't know anything about church history and what they thought about how they were conceptualizing the Trinity. So yeah, you think of 2 years ago, if you asked me, I'm like, yeah, there's a formally consistent model out there, right? But then I would have said that I think there are conceptual issues or blah blah blah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. I feel like it's a tricky question.
It's only because like a lot of Muslims would just go around and start saying, "Oh, the Trinity is not logical," or whatever, and it's like, if Nick is just saying that it is according to this,
Yeah,
then
they can't just
I
like
understand
they
like
can't just
Juju's motivation.
yeah like okay, I think that the relative identity move is an interesting move, meaning that it furthers the dialectic. It puts the anti-Trinitarian on a defensive mode now, right? Because here they are presenting a model, they are calling it Trinitarian, right? And it is, there doesn't seem to be any obvious issues with identity being relativized. So it does put the anti-Trinitarian in a defensive mode, and they can't just repeat what they said and say there's inconsistent. All right, so now the anti-Trinitarian has to show problems with the operator, which don't look, I think that's the bad move. That those don't capture Trinitarian commitments, or that it's heretical, or that they have to make a move, I think. So yeah, I think it's while it's quite annoying in a kind of in a sort of on TikTok, when there's a lot of egos at play and a lot of emotions and all that, it is sort of like annoying. But like philosophically speaking, it's like, okay, we're now at step 2. We've made progress, I think. Right? The Trinitarian has recognized that there is a problem with characterizing the Trinity the way I have. Right? That's progress. Okay. So then the Trinitarian just says those don't accurately represent our commitments historically, today, not ever. You're attacking essentially a straw man. Here's the correct understanding of what we're saying. It's an interesting move. It has to be. That's a paperwork.
Yeah, that's a good move. I think my thing is there are like genuine, anti. I understand
Wait,
what people are saying.
Kayla go after this, by the way.
Yeah, so there are genuine like anti Trinitarian, people that have like genuine anxiety, and then there's just people that do not want to believe in the Trinity no matter what, right? Reason why I think Jake is one of those people is because in my debate with him and his conversation with Nick, and every time he talks about like Christians on TikTok, whatever, it will be like the Trinitarians reject classical logic, right? Like he would always try to say something like, "Oh, by taking the relative identity thesis, you are going against like classical logic or the people behind classical logic, like Frege Russell, right?" Cool, fine. So he doesn't take relative identity. Bear in mind, he didn't know about relative identity when I brought it up to him in my debate, but now he tells Nick he doesn't take it. So he didn't know about it, now he doesn't take it. Okay, fine. Now, the same people that he says are like the classical logician, whatever, like Frege Russell, right? If you take Frege's view of numbers are going to be indexed to concepts, right? So when we say that there's 3 persons, that's indexed to the concept God. Yeah, one God that's indexed to the concept God, right? Frege doesn't think that you could mention a number and have no concept behind it. He thinks the number points to the concept. Now, this Fregean analysis of numbers, if he sees like the counting problem for the Trinity, he's just gonna be like, get the hell out of my face. He's gonna think it's a trash argument, right?
I don't think I might disagree, because I read, if you look at, I think it's like page 32, 34 of Frege's on the arithmetic book. What is it called? Foundations of Arithmetic.
Foundations of Arithmetic.
Yeah, he actually said something interesting, and this is what I kind of learned the hard way that there is no specific system called classical logic. I learned that the hard way. I mean, it's not like I was like super misinformed, right? Because what I was referring to is the kind of logic you might learn in Logic 101 in a college class. That's what I was thinking, like maybe predicate logic or something like that. But like now that I have done a little bit more work in that, like it's actually kind of, the phrase classical logic is more, it's like kind of almost nearly apophatic. You can say what it's not,
and not
and
what
not
it
really
is.
say
Yeah.
what it is, right? But but Frege in those pages, right, mentioned that distinction, right, that distinction creates plurality, which is what convinced me to, which is what motivated me to think that that counting principle is part of the kind of Frege-Russell logic, we'll call it. And I asked a logician about whether this is sort of assumed or implied in those sort of systems, and they suggested yes, right? But now it's less clear to me. But yeah, Frege says, you want me to find those pages? Do you have that book?
No, I know. Yeah, like I know when he says, because he thinks that like when you have it belongs to the form of an identity relation to the absolute. So like if two things are the same, there is no distinction. That's just one and the same thing.
Wait,
But like,
sorry, say that again. Say that again.
so Frege thinks that when you have an identity relation, like the identity relation is going to be absolute, meaning that if one thing is the same as another thing, then they're just the same. Like there's no distinction. So I agree with you there. Like yeah, like that's.
Oh, does he say that explicitly?
Geach says that that's Frege's thoughts.
Oh, that's how he characterizes him. Okay.
Yeah, but what's it called? Like that part is about identity relations. So that goes back to the other problem, which is like the more like common LPT. I was talking about the counting problem. So like,
yeah, I'm talking about the counting problem.
But under the counting problem, like the reason why he says two things are like if two things are the same, there is no distinction, is because of his analysis of identity. Actually, I think if you read Frege on like Sense and Reference, he talks about this.
His paper?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm pulling it up. He might say what Geach have said. I haven't, but he says it in a different way. He says that if things are distinct, then there's quantity. So I would assume that he would be sympathetic to the counting problem because Jesus and the Father are distinct. They have that predicate God, and so there's plurality in that.
All right, can we put a pause in this convo? Because there's Professor.
Yeah, go ahead, Caleb.
Wait, Caleb.